Welcome to Theological Grazing. Well, I've got an agricultural musing for you today. It's a bit theological too. It relates to something I often talk about when I speak about the abundance that God has put into the world, the abundance of life, the abundance of His provision and blessing, the fact, hashtag my cup overflows. It's all over the place, but thinking from an agricultural perspective, and I'm no expert on these things. Many have been thinking about these things and doing a lot within the agricultural realm for a lot longer than I have. But I'm thinking about it right now because I'm driving. I've been driving for a while, and as I drive, I just see, there's so much grass, so much grassland just right next to the road everywhere you go. Even if it's just in the median, there's just so much grass. There's so much space. And, all along, I've been driving for the last 3 or so hours, and along the whole way, except when I'm right in the middle of a town, there's just so much excess grass. And then it's, then you think about, even in town when I drive through, look at every yard, look at how much space there is and how much potential there is in each person's yard. And I just thought, man, there is such an abundance of possibility with all of this. You think about how many animals could live off of the amount of grass that I've just driven by in the last, just since I started talking about this. And it's a lot, but it's not being used that way at all. Usually it's just mowed. It's just mowed down next to the road, and that's it. In most people's yards, even if they live in a town where they have a little bit of a yard, it's just, you just mow it. That's it. There was some controversy in La Crosse. There was the no mow May, right? Is that what it was? No mow May. And I'm not in the city, so I don't know, exactly what it was, but I think it was in May. But there was a whole month where, it was encouraged that you don't mow, and you don't have to mow, and you wouldn't get a ticket or anything for not mowing, which I think, I get it. I get why you want the city to look nice, but to ticket somebody for not mowing, maybe this will explain why I don't like that. But a lot of people had a problem with it, right? Because it looks like it's overgrown. But man, when I saw it, I thought there's so much more life. There's so much more life in a lot of this grass. So many more, bugs and animals and things that get benefit from this. And then just think about the amount of animals that could just, graze it. I saw a tweet somewhat recently where I think it was it was South Africa. I was going to say Australia, but it was in South Africa, and it was like a subdivision, and there was just a handful of cows, and the person said here, where we're at, it's pretty normal to just have a handful of cows that just graze through the properties, and that's, there's enough grass on, in this subdivision or whatever to handle this many cows. And I just thought, man, that's so cool. And I know it would take a culture shift for most to get used to that, because we have this idea that a completely sterile lawn that has no life on it at all is healthy for some reason, or at least it looks nicer. And I wish we could change that. But in looking at this, I just thought, there's an abundance that's just completely untapped. Think if every person in a smaller city that had yards would have a garden and would keep all of their grass clippings, even if they didn't feed an animal with the grass clippings. Hey, keep your grass clippings, and you composted it or use it on a garden or something like that. I mean, that right there, there's a lot that you could grow and do just with that. Think if, in town, instead of planting, trees that are just trees, and that's great, But everybody was planting apple trees and, different kinds of fruit trees outside their yards. And so you're driving down a city, and every quarter acre and smaller plot still had 3 or 4 perennial trees that are going to be, giving fruit throughout the year. That would be a ton of fruit in a little city. That would just be a ton. So whether it be gardens or animals or, fruit-bearing trees, there's so much opportunity, there's so much abundance that's possible in the world that God has given us. And this, if you're in a really, really, tight city, if you're in New York City, I know there's at least some of you listening to this in New York. Well, it's going to be harder, probably. I wonder if, having just, potted plants, herbs that grow, some kind of aquaponics. I wonder if there's different things like that you could do. I don't know. I don't live in a big city, and so it's hard for me to even think about it. Although I like troubleshooting, and so if you're ever interested and you're like, hey, I want to figure out what more I could do, I'd be very interested in thinking about it with you if you want. But in order to tap into this kind of abundance that is in the world, it would require a few different things. Number one, it would require taking on personal responsibility. Everybody would have to be doing a little bit of something. Now, on a small, in a small garden, or, if you're planting fruit trees or what have you, it's not a lot of work. It's not a lot of extra. If you just had a couple of animals, it just depends on the time of year or, what you're doing. Often, even for more animals, for more, a larger garden, it's just, even then it's the kind of thing that there are certain times that it's going to be more difficult because it takes more work, in the spring or maybe in the fall. But then a lot of the times in between, it just won't be as hard. But it would mean taking personal responsibility and having to do more, right? You would have to work more. You'd have to add something to what you do. I think you'd love it and enjoy it. I really do. One of the most amazing things in the world is to, hatch some of your own chicks, or to, plant a little seed and then watch the seedling pop up and go plant it in the garden and watch it grow and then eat it when it is fully grown and mature. There's just nothing like it. It really is incredible. It feels like magic. Bringing life that is, productive and healthy and enjoyable and tastes good. It's pretty magical. But it would take personal responsibility from more and more people. More people would have to do more. You wouldn't be able to specialize it out to someone else. Everything okay? Okay. Well, I just passed somebody who had a light out and was kind of on the side of the road, so I just wanted to make sure that they were okay. They were okay. All right, well, maybe I'll cut that out, but it's possible I'll forget. Sometimes I forget to cut that stuff out, so you might just hear it. So it'd take, taking on personal responsibility, and it would also take some other things. No, it would take a kind of, more diversity in what people are doing. It's going to be different depending on where you live. It's going to be different depending on the size of, this extra land that you have. If you just have one little strip along the side of the road that is not being used, well, that's going to be used in a different way than if you have, a large plot somewhere, a big field. There's going to be diversity in what you can have, what you can manage, diversity in your own skill set. Are you going to be better with a garden or better with livestock, or, what kind of livestock? This allows for diversity, though. And one of the cool things, another Wendell Berryism. I know I've been doing a lot of Wendell Berry lately. But, he has in an essay that I was reading by him, he quotes one of his friends who says, no matter the farm, no matter how large or, no matter how small, no matter how much you already have on it, there's almost always room for a little herd of sheep, a little flock of sheep. And he says this because there's sheep take very little as far as what they need to eat. And there's usually always some extra grass around that's not being eaten. And the idea is that, you can grow seemingly what seems like almost unendingly. It's not that way. I'm sure there's a limit to it, but it seems like you can keep growing and adding what you can produce off of whatever size, land you have. But the extra production doesn't come from, monocropping the whole thing. The extra production comes from actually diversifying what you have. So, you can graze multiple kinds of animals together on the same pasture because they might eat different parts of the grass. You might be able to, run one kind of animal through an area and then run another through, and they'll, do different things on the land that will, it'll work. You can have more. You might be able to plant twice as many plants, but they have to be a different kind because, two different kinds kind of grow together or in different ways. One is a vine that goes upward and, one spreads out. I don't know. I'm not a great gardener. My wife might listen to this and be like, yeah, that's not quite right. That's not quite the right analogy. That's fine. But there are different plants that you could add to what you already have. Or, maybe it's just, hey, I've got a little extra counter space. Boom, get some herbs on there. Get them in front of a window. Get some light. You can just keep adding. But it might be, I can only add something small, or maybe I can add something big. There's going to be diversity, right? There's going to be diversity in what you add. It takes personal responsibility. It also takes, kind of a diverse thinking. Not I'm going to blow this up as big as I can with the same kind of creature, the same kind of plant. I'm going to grow just an unbelievable amount of tomatoes. Well, I don't know if you can keep going with that, but you could keep, adding if it's different things. Find different things that you can add to what you already have going on. It also then, I think, as just a larger, systemic reality, it would take a decentralization of agriculture to do this. To use up all the land that, we have available to us, it would take a lot more people doing a lot more of the agricultural work, rather than having one person in charge of, just an unbelievable amount of acreage, one big company doing it. What if you just had, every home was engaged in some aspect of agriculture? That's what you would need, actually. You would have to decentralize it in order to make this work, I think. So, personal responsibility, diversification, and decentralization. I think this is what it would take, but we could use so much more, and we could produce, I think, so much more. I know that's kind of against the general understanding of things. I know that sounds weird, and maybe I'm totally wrong. I could be. I've no beef with those who would disagree on this point. This is just my musings. But I just see so much land, even right now, from literally the vantage point I'm at right now. Man, there's just so much unused space that could have so much more. And it would just take these things, right? Diversification, personal responsibility, and decentralization. Well, that's all, folks. If you could help me out, rate and review this podcast, share it with a friend, go ahead and email me if you have any questions. We're out.